You're going to receive a message now.
Okay.
Please accept. So, a very warm welcome to everyone. A good evening from Australia, good morning to some parts of Europe, good afternoon to other parts of Europe, and good afternoon and almost good evening to Asia for the friends joining us. And I don't know the time in the US right now. I see my very good friend, Michalis, who's joining from the US, but I'm not sure what time it is over there in Boston. No, it's generally speaking, the East Coast. In hindsight, there was, I think there would be no worse time in terms of date, not time, to organize this event, because today is the Australian Football League final. It's going on right now. It started an hour and a half ago. Tomorrow we have the NRL final. However, when we organized this event, everything was uncertain. So, you know, usually the AFL final is the last weekend of September. They didn't know when and where they're going to hold it. So it coincided with this event. But nevertheless, thanks everyone, especially from Australia, who joined tonight. To explain a bit the event, it's informal, switch on, I said before, your cameras, feel free to chat. There's no reason to keep tight and formal today. And I'm just going to start 5 minutes to discuss the idea and the process behind the specific book. And then Michele is going to continue with her part, and she's going to invite the authors who join us today, to say a few words and to read maybe some parts of the chapters. And I don't expect this will last more than half an hour. Then we can have an open discussion. You can turn on your microphones and, you know, raise any question, ask for anything you wish to anyone from the contributors of this book. So it was late 2018, actually, when this idea came to my poor mind. And actually, I started writing my monograph, which will be published in 30 years from now, I think, because I type and delete all the time. And when I started this journey, at some point, I said, okay, why would, you know, people like to read about me or my thoughts and perspectives or whatever alone? And why don't we give the platform, the podium, to others to express themselves about safety? And of course, there are many scientific papers, there are many conferences, there are plenty of events that people can, you know, express themselves, but not everyone has access, first of all. And second, I think that when we just listen to people, or they don't have the time to reflect, they don't have the time to go into detail they wish. And to be honest, my experience shows that most of the time we're great in sharing our successful moments and very reserved in sharing the inconvenient moments. So I contacted Michela and they say, you know, Michela, I'm thinking to invite people to share their successful and failed stories about safety. What do you think? And Michela found the idea very nice. Another colleague also wanted to join this book as a co-editor, but for some personal reasons could not make it. Okay, the idea was there, say what is next? So we started emailing all our contacts and also posting on LinkedIn, open invitation to everyone who would like to contribute. It was a biased sample. I mean that, of course, because our network is more from Europe, yeah, inevitably, most of the people who expressed their, let's say, will to join this project were from Europe, but then we got a few people from Australia and Asia. Then we got the responses. It was one-page narrative. I mean, what would you like to talk about? Actually, we didn't have any intention to screen. We said, okay, just to see how many responses we're going to receive. So initially, we were more than 20, I think 22 or so. And then we invited everyone. Yes, please, those are the instructions, that the guidance, not instruction, how to write your chapter, what we expect from you, what is the idea behind. And in the course of writing, a few of the authors withdrew. The reasons varied between commitments and let's say they found it a bit difficult to reflect. We received a couple of very nicely described in technical terms articles, like the standards and technical manuals that we use, and say, you know, we need a bit more reflection there, not just description. So those people say, we don't have the time, or we feel we cannot contribute. So we ended up with 15 chapters from the authors from various industries and countries, plus the chapter of Michela and mine. And we rejected nothing. The authors are here to testify that. We didn't ask from people to change their perspectives, to change their stories. We didn't say, we like this school of thinking, this safety approach, we're going to reject something else. We honestly accommodated all voices and all experiences. Whether that would be safety differently, whether that would be the typical risk matrix, or behavioral safety, or standardized safety management, or innovative use of technology to do whatever. So we wanted to have pluralism, and I believe we achieved that. So yeah, that was a great start. We approached the publisher. We approached 3 publishers, to be honest. So the best offer and best comments came from Francis Taylor and Francis, and we agreed to go on with this project. I'm very thankful to all authors because they were so patient with the pressure we put on them to write within specific timelines. I'm very grateful to them because they were so patient with the comments of mine and Michela, how to, let's say, make the messages more salient and more reflective there. And it's an honor, actually, that all those people trusted myself and Michela and participated in this first of its kind book. At least I haven't come across any other project like this. So without any further ado, we're going to discuss after the first round of, let's say, small pitches from Michela and the authors. I'm going to pass over to Michela.
Okay, thank you, Nectarios. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for investing the time. So I'll try to keep it short because it's a team effort and everyone should have a say today. So for me, it was a beautiful 2-year-long journey, really, that we all took together. Words really are not enough. I was trying to come up with some words to thank Nectarios, the authors, and all our colleagues that endorsed the book. To me, this book is more like a psychographic, if you like, survey rather than a technical output. It was and it is a personal confession and testimony, if you like, through which I got to know myself better, the authors as well as the profession, and what we as safety and systems engineers offer to the society. So touching a little bit on my chapter, I tried while writing this chapter to capture my viewpoint of an experienced academic that joined industry in her early 30s. My chapter is about considering projects, complex mega projects as socio-technical systems, and of course being safety critical as well. I would be happy to take any questions offline, and I'll pause here, and I would like to invite our other authors to share some thoughts, some ideas, feelings, whatever you would like really. I will use the table of contents because I know that some of you have already the book, so it will be easier to run through the list. So ladies first, I'll start with Katerini Karakatsani with chapter 1. Katerini, if you would like to start with this, yeah, the floor is yours. Katerina, are you with us? Okay, no, Thinks isn't. Okay, so
Thanks is an apology. Just stick to the list on the top right of your panel, because not all authors are tonight with us.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. We will move on to chapter 2, Anne-Louise Slack. No, I think, no, we don't have Anne-Louise either. Athanasios Galanis. Sorry for my Greek accent. It's easier for me to pronounce the names in Greek, really. Okay. But Badar is here. Badar Farouk. I saw Badar. I have him in front of me. So Badar, yeah, you will be the first to talk about your chapter.
Yes, hi, Michaela, Nectarios, and everyone else. Happy to be here. And first of all, thank you to Nectarios and Michaela, especially for this initiating this project and the book, and having me as a co-author, and of course for arranging this this event where we can speak and share our experiences. So first of all, I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Yeah. Okay. That's good. So I'll speak a few words initially about my experience writing this chapter in the book. So I'd also echo a few of the points that Nectarios mentioned when he was speaking about this experience. Personally, for me, it was quite nice to be able to reflect deeply on some recent experiences I've had, especially with respect to the topic of my chapter, which was the application of technology to safety initiatives and safety management systems. I'm currently, I would say, in my mid-career as well as in my mid-30s from an age point of view. So I do have obviously time left to gather more experiences and reflect on them and share them. So being able to do this exercise at this point in my career and in my life, I think was a unique and pretty good experience for me. So the way I came about to write my chapter, draft the chapter, was that I usually used to do this after work some days as far as weekdays are concerned. Other than that, on weekends, sometimes I used to visit a nearby coffee shop, and I used to, the way I drafted my chapter was low tech, I would say, because even though the topic had to do with technology, I used to sit with a pen and paper and just jot down my thoughts, reflect on the experience that I had had with respect to the topic that I was talking about, both the positive and the negative experience. And at the same time, it was quite nice to have the support of Nectarios and Michaela, and of course the publisher, have a third person basically review my experience and my writing and receive feedback from them. And as Nectarios and Michaela have mentioned, I was very happy from the fact that they did not try to pigeonhole me as an author in terms of, the way I described my experience. There was no boundary set from that point of view. They encouraged, in fact, via their questioning and via the feedback they gave me, they encouraged me to, share my thoughts on various topics, and as well as reflect on the interactions I had had, with my colleagues as far as the experiences were concerned. So that was quite nice. It was refreshing. And like Mikhail also said, I was happy to see that it was not another technical focused, book or paper or academic experience, basically. So yeah, so that was quite nice. And at the same time, in terms of geographical experience, I don't think there are many authors of this book who are based in the Middle East, or specifically, who belong to the Arabian Gulf region. So I've been here for quite a long time, and I think I was happy to basically share my experience from this particular geography and the type of, let's say, contractors and companies that I worked with over here. So that was quite nice too for me. So yeah, so these were a couple of words in terms of my experience writing the book. And you had also asked the authors if we'd like to convey a couple of lines from our chapters. So I'd like to do that, if that's all right.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I'm looking at my copy of the book here. So this is from page 43, and this is towards the end of my chapter. And over here, basically, I'm gonna speak a couple of lines with respect to the way IT programs or IT related solutions are implemented, from a safety management point of view. Right. So all right. So beginning in quotes. Whereas employees' behavioral issues and contractor management problems are addressed continuously through interpersonal communication in many cases, I am particularly concerned about the IT and technical issues surrounding the implementation of similar programs in companies and projects around the world. In my experience, I have found the administrative side of project safety, especially around data recording, analysis, and reporting, to be a universal pain point. Data collection and analytics are becoming more important as many companies in various industries around the globe attempt to understand better and consequently improve their safety performance. Accurate data informs on a company's safety performance in an objective manner at a particular point in time. Benchmarking this data against previous or future statistics would inform on the performance journey, the effectiveness of any implemented initiatives, and so on. End quotes.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you, Badar.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Indeed, an emerging area. I'm sure every one of us has made experiences when it comes to IT safety and cybersecurity. It's the topic of the times, really. Thank you very much, Badar. So yeah, Connor, I see Coron being online. So yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and first of all, thank you to Nectarius and Michaela for this wonderful opportunity. I will start with a confession. When it came to making my contribution and starting to write, I obviously didn't read the small print, and I never actually thought my name was going to appear, other than perhaps in the acknowledgements for the book, to say thank you to our contributors. And I suppose with hindsight, if I had known that I was writing a chapter in a book, that my name would appear behind it, it might well have influenced how I wrote. So it was quite liberating not to have that concern as I was doing the writing. And I suppose I wanted to congratulate both of you and all the other authors that really the book is a celebration of what it is to be human within the safety systems of the world. We spend so much of our time focused on tools and systems, and you mentioned conferences, preaching to the converted. And yet this book is really, it's all about human performance within safety culture. And at the end of the day, it's all about the people. And it's really exciting to read some of the stories from different industries and how critical people are to safety culture. Writing the book itself, you know, like Marion, I see there from Cork, Irish people are well known for our love of storytelling, and I do confess to using storytelling as a tool in my safety toolkit. And I quite often, when I go into a presentation, I do tend to ad lib. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint or having, you know, scripts before I start a safety talk. But I jokingly say to people, please write down or record what I say, because I never remember what I say. So actually, when it came to writing, putting it down on paper, I found it quite difficult, because I suddenly realized I had no idea what I had said and how I told the stories. So it was a great, as Badur said, a great opportunity to pause and reflect and actually identify those stories that I rely on to get messages across, and actually try and turn it into a narrative that other people could relate to. And yeah, I really liked your idea. We tend to celebrate our successes, and that's really important. And, you know, success breeds success. And when we tell people what works, hopefully they can emulate it and do it elsewhere, even in other industries. We're less forthcoming with our mistakes, unless they happen to be glorious mistakes that end up in the papers and in formal publications, where we've no option but to be humble and accept that we made mistakes and let everyone learn from them. It's the things that we get away with that we fix as we do and keep going. That's where can be real learning, and that was certainly one of my reflections as I wrote this, where in one of my sections I talked about an attempt, rather naive attempt, to change the direction of a large organization without understanding how important the details were to so many people, and that had I invested a little bit more time in talking to those people before I tried to make the change, I might have been more successful the first time around. But certainly it was a learning experience. So like Badr, I will read a short passage from Cultivating Future Safety Leaders. People say you only get one opportunity to make a first impression, and we all know how long this impression can last. Therefore, for people in safety critical roles, from pilots to cabin crew, engineers to ground staff, every meeting, casual greeting, etc. should be looked upon as an opportunity to make a connection. That cleaner I met in the car park might be the person who finds the broken tabletop with the sharp edge. The security agent frisking me might be a pain, but his or her diligence is critical to spotting the malcontent behind me in the line. And the gate agent I say hello to might be the one who stops the disruptive passenger from boarding my aircraft. We should never miss an opportunity to build our network. None of us can keep the operation safe by ourselves. We must always rely on our colleagues around us to work as a team. The quality of that team reflects our safety culture. Creating an atmosphere of trust within a team, from 2 pilots in the cockpit to a full shift of loaders, can fundamentally alter how that team performs. Knowing I can share my concerns, knowing I can count on a little understanding, can lead me to try a little harder, focus a little sharper, eager not to betray that small piece of humanity shown to me. As safety leaders, we can all use this technique to bond our teams, have our followers trust us, respect us, and most importantly, do the right thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Conor.
Thank you, Conor. Thank you. Another very important aspect, leadership and governance. Thank you very much, Conor. Darren Stevenson.
Hello, how are you doing? So, hi to Nicholas and Michaela. Thanks for this opportunity to contribute to this interesting project. I must admit, when I was asked to produce a transcript initially, I actually did it within about 40 minutes. And I actually stuck with the pieces that I contributed, which is in the book now. simply because I felt that at the time when I reflected upon it, that the two instances were contrasting in what the messages that they portrayed. What I took from it after was, and I think was being probed by yourselves, was the sort of deeper underlying issues that were that don't necessarily get uncovered from your initial investigations. And so my chapter was around two instances that occurred. One was essentially a near miss, and the second one was an accident. And so I'd like to read an excerpt from my piece, which was on page 58, and it says that the engineer was not backed and empowered by any contractor policy to make a safety stand. Thus, the engineer cannot challenge the commercial status quo of the contractor. He was bearing all the risk and knew no different than the knowledge gained from inadequate training together with an incomplete set of rams that missed the significant risks related to the hazard of falling. My investigation initially revealed that the following: that the engineer hadn't been given a replacement PPE. The engineer's harness and lanyards had not been inspected for 10 months, whereas the UK law requires an inspection every 6 months. The safe system of work had not identified at the planning stage any requirement for a rescue system, on-site monitoring, and two-person attendance when accessing a rooftop site through a fixed ladder. The RAMs had not identified the points above, and its provisions were very generic. I'd reasoned that these behaviours ran throughout the whole contractor's business as an action slip as defined by Reeves and Hobbs, where the action slip runs on a rail along a familiar route, the routine of a task. At this time, because of the change in circumstances, an action slip occurred. Had the information of a two-person site been available during the planning process, together with the respective training, assets and inspections, both the project team and the engineer could have made an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Indeed, training, availability of knowledge are very important in doing safety efficiently. Thank you very much, Derek. Demetrius is with us. He just noted that he has some issues with his sound, but let's try that, Demetrius, and see how it goes.
No, I put the sound in quotes because I'm not alone in the house. That's why I put the sound in quotes. I hope everybody can hear me well.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, yep. Okay. Good morning from Pyrgos, Greece. As you can see, we are very sunny here, today at least. I would like to take the opportunity to thank foremost Nectarios. I didn't have the chance to meet Michaela yet in person. I want to thank Nectarios for giving me the chance to participate in this great work. And it is a great work because when professionals, especially professionals from safety, get to share their personal experiences, and I will say that the negative experiences were the toughest ones, and I had to choose from which of my negative experiences I had to fill in my chapter. This is the difficult part, which promotes actually the field and can make any professional a little bit better. And as I can see, I might be the youngest here as well, especially among the authors. This is another point for Nectarios for trusting me being part of this group. And what I want to say here is that trust people who are new in safety, trust people who are new in being professionals in this field, because you will never know what good outcome you might receive at the end. Yesterday I was talking with Nectarios and I told him that I wouldn't like to read a part from my chapter, but now I have changed my mind in order to follow the other participants in the conversation. I would like to read a small part from the positive experience. Well, the part goes like this. The bottom line is that safety practitioners, not only psychologists, should always consider and grasp the needs and the buttons to push of the people they are dealing with, regardless of their role as top managers or first liners. The important point is to adjust before applying any approach. You have to adjust your behavior towards the mini climate of the organization you are working and for each one you wish to approach. This is not a skill built in a day. It takes time and valuable energy. There might be some barriers, either people, procedures, or stereotypes, which will make the job even harder. My advice is to manage any possible hostilities or aggressiveness rather than react to them. Build alliances and separate the people from the problems. And through this, you can see how a little motivation can lead to a success story. Based on this quote, I will say that my feelings when I was writing these two small stories was that I was feeling like I was being interviewed from someone younger than me, someone new, a new investigator, a new psychologist. And I was able to prevent something from happening to him or giving them the important advice that could prevent something for him in the future. That's everything from my point. If there are any questions later on, I will be glad to answer.
Thank you, Dimitrios. Indeed, the other day I was reading that the Royal Academy of Engineering here in the UK started discussing about the role of diversity in the area of safety engineering in order to enhance and enrich safety and approaches. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Genoveva is with us. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Nectaria, for actually the opportunity and for the collaboration. I found it extremely exciting and very, very good, actually, on many, many, many levels. So thank you, and thank you for this event as well, because it's a good opportunity to come together and actually see an overview and get a snapshot of all the interesting stories that you have included in the book. Just to start off myself in regards to the experience, the reflection of writing my chapter, I would say it was both easy and difficult at the same time. It was easy in the sense that I had quite a lot of material, actually, that was relevant to that. And it was heavily related to the projects that I've been working at the time. And surprisingly, I could see a lot of stories and narratives that could fit within the safety context. And that actually was the only way actually to have found that out was actually the opportunity to work on the chapter actually for the book, because otherwise you don't necessarily get a full view in a small period of time to see what kind of safety issues might be around. So it was quite revealing in that sense. And the preparation for the chapter in the book helped a lot. The difficult aspect was that because I had so much data really, it was difficult to choose what to include. So I tried to tell the stories that they were more related to something more, let's say, kind of different, to demonstrate a slightly different perspective of the traditional aspects of safety. So just to move on with that, I found quite insightful through the process and looking through the transport oriented, transport-focused stories that I've put in the chapter, I found quite insightful the realization of the different safety layers that exist. And for me, the stories that I've put were from both the perspective of the end user, in the case of airport travel is the passenger, but also from more engineering, human factors engineering, which is my expertise, point of view at the same time. So it was interesting to see the two sides of the single coin at the same time. And what I found out, and I tried to communicate through the chapter, was that the links between the layers, let's say the front end safety aspects and the back end, more engineering and protocol based aspects, they don't map, or they don't get synchronized in practice when someone experiences services and systems that they actually are designed with safety in mind, at least in theory, but in practice to a wide extent, which is very good. So for me, that was the key thing, how in effect we can link the safety aspects from both perspectives across all the layers, so that we can provide a more enhanced experience. And what we mean by experience, we refer to experience of end users, passengers in this case, but also operators and engineers that they work in a transport hub system or service. So for me, that was the major thing, but also the other insightful aspect for me was that we really need to take into account the personal stories of all people involved, all the stakeholders involved within a system or within an ecosystem, to be calling it better, I think. So this personalization aspect is missing from rigorous methodologies for actually mapping the different layers of safety. And that's what I found. So we really need to somehow record those personalization stories, safety stories, and then map them, capitalize them into more enhanced protocols, more enhanced frameworks to deliver safety. Just to move on with a quick snippet of from my chapter, I believe it's from page 85. I'll start with saying, quotes, open quotes, 7 minutes passed after all passengers bar myself had disembarked. I called the flight attendant to ask about what was happening, as no one had come to pick me up. Just for the context, currently I was in a PRM passenger with reduced mobility status, so I was waiting according to the protocol to get someone to pick me up to help me catch my flight, my connecting flight. So to continue with the quotes, the flight attendant, who by the way was very friendly, responded to me in panic that I would miss my flight if I did not disembark immediately. At that moment, I got totally confused, as the staff themselves contradicted the protocol and the instructions they had already given me. So in effect, that's a quick snippet of how the mismatch in practice of what the protocol and what a single individual tells the passenger about what the protocol is and how they don't actually follow it the very next minute. That's an example of that situation. And I will just end up with some other quotes from page 88 to summarize the chapter. And quote, we must understand that mobility hubs are living ecosystems of increased complexity and experiential interactions. Therefore, we must achieve a better understanding and inclusion of the experience and interaction factors within the traditional models and approaches to system safety and safety engineering. With advances in automation and the Internet of Things, more complex systems are being transformed to complex services, thus demanding reapproaching system safety from a safety experiential context as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Genoveva, very much. Yes, indeed, human factors, inclusion, ecosystems are a very important aspect to deliver safety. Thank you, Genoveva. So yeah, moving on, like Connor said earlier, our second Irish friend, Marion. Marion, you can go ahead.
Greetings, Michaela. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a million for the opportunity, I suppose, to contribute to this book. And I think it's a great idea Michaela and Nectarius, and great credit is due to you both. When you reached out initially, Nectarius, as you know, it was like trying to pull hen's teeth, trying to get me to, you know, actually come up with something. And I found it quite difficult, actually. We have so many stories, but yet what I chose to actually reflect on was a success and a failure in one. So this was a program that I had introduced in a previous role. It was a new safety program. It was behavioral-based safety, that's what we called it. And I can see some people probably, even though they have no monitors on, going tutting at that BBS, you know, because, you know, as things have progressed, and I look back now, and we know the foundations of BBS and Heinrich's triangle and the quest for zero, and it wasn't a true BBS program. In hindsight, I refused at the time, as did the team that were working with me, to actually go out on the stairwells and monitor how many people were holding handrails. We saw it as absolutely ludicrous, and we were going to lose the engagement that we had with the program. We were more interested in what was it? What were the real problems that were actually helping or hindering people? Now, we didn't use that language at the time, but how was it that people might get hurt when they were out on site? We wanted to find out those you know, via observations, you know. So it actually turned out to be a very successful program, but it had a lot in common in hindsight when we look at new view safety, I suppose, or some people call it safety differently, and some are whatever terms people will put on it. But it was on a pharmaceutical plant, and yeah, it was just like, from an engagement perspective, it was very successful. If you looked at the lagging indicators, the injuries went down. We weren't actually focusing on that at the time, but when it came up to the year review of the pilot, the plant manager had said it was the most successful program, that a lot of the trivial items that usually took up all the time at safety meetings, they were now gone. So I think that what comes in here is this perception of safety as what's perceived as trivial from a management perspective. When we look at risk, actually, when you look at the frustrations from the frontline operators from a day-to-day basis, I often think that a risk assessment needs to be like a Rubik's Cube, and that you need to have a little bit of a consideration there in relation to what's the emotional investment of the guys doing the work. Are they going around like Rumpelstiltskin because this thing isn't there where they need it, you know? And just to give that a little bit and take that into consideration. The risk mightn't be great by the typical matrices that we use, but actually on listening to the lads, the amount of time it takes them to do a job and the frustrations they're experiencing, if we can listen to that and take action on that and remove them, it does an awful lot more in relation to engagement, in relation to buy-in, and making it positive. When we look at safety, and let's be honest, as health and safety professionals, when we go out and we mention to people that we work in health and safety, I've come across a lot of people and they just glaze over. We have become renowned as being the party poopers. We come in, we spoil all the fun. But actually, health and safety, there's so much positivity in relation to what we do, but we tend to focus on the whole and not the donut. You know, we don't see all the stuff that we are doing and all the good stuff that's happening. We wait until something goes wrong. And that's a lot of the time where our focus has gone. Thankfully, there's an evolution happening actually in safety professionals and in our practice. And we're actually taking notice as to what's coming out of safety science now and trying to bring that into practice. But I think it's just really important that health and safety can be something that's really positive. And we kind of have to do a bit of marketing around that to actually have people engage with the system. And that means introducing a bit of humour, you know, funny posters. We used, people here who are here from Ireland will know, we had Pat Short up there on some of the posters that we used. We had, you know, Faulty Towers, we had, you know, Last of the Summer Wine, whatever, to catch people's attention and to start discussions. Posters are not going to change people's behaviours that way you want to look at it, but actually it does help to actually bring a bit of engagement with the programme and give people a bit of a laugh and a crack and a joke, and that helps with it. So I suppose, Conor, you mentioned about stories. I'm all about stories. I absolutely love stories. We come from Ireland. We actually have what we call here in Ireland Shanachis, and their profession is that they're professional storytellers. And actually we had a group last year out in the Aran Islands with Cognitive Edge, and we brought a Shanachie out. This was all about talking about how stories can help shape our societies and our organisations, and they do. So I think to read these stories, and I'm making my way through the book as well, it's really insightful. And as you said, Nectarius, we often don't talk about, you know, some of the less, if the outcomes weren't great, like we're very slow to actually talk about those. I'm very honest myself about my own shortcomings and pitfalls and learnings over the years. And this example here in this book, and I'll read an excerpt there now, not to take up too much more time, but I actually focus on a success and a failure in one. Very successful program, but the failure in it was not taken into consideration. And we learn as we go. I suppose you can say the politics, is it the culture? It's just you learn as you go. As you get more mature, you will realize this linear pathway that you see. There are so many twists and bends and ups and downs and in arounds and around about the houses for you to get to where you want to go. So I learned an awful lot in that. It ended up with me, actually, I'm lucky to be here today because I ended up being so overcommitted to that role and working ridiculous hours every week. I ended up actually having burnout for 6 months and reaching real depths, I suppose, in my own life where I had to consider many aspects, you know. So without further ado, and I look back now and I suppose I start that chapter saying, I can see clearly now the rain has gone. You know, that song in Ireland we associate it with the hothouse flowers. Other people might associate it with Johnny Cash. But it's just with the benefit of hindsight, now I can go back and see clearly. But when you're in the midst of that, sometimes you actually can't see the wood from the trees, you know. So I'll read out a small bit there so we can move on and let somebody else get a word in. So looking back now, I can see that our biases shape our behaviour. We jump to conclusions based on fragmented pieces of information which we categorise based on patterns we come to recognise through our lived experience. Having come from the grassroots via an operator role, I was tethered to that space by constraints not visible to me at the time. The same could be said for a supervisor who was tethered to their space at management level by constraints not visible to them. Yet these invisible and intangible constraints shaped and influenced how we engaged and interacted with each other. The committee was so blinded by our allegiance to the frontline group that we failed to see things from the management's perspective. Our biases told us that our challenge was in convincing frontline employees of the value of our programme. We failed to see the glaring omission of convincing management of the value of it. Seeing the world as always being an ordered space was something I was also guilty of. The leadership and management teams were given a talk by the site leader about the future of our programme, so we didn't have to worry about that side of things, right? As we later found out, that was a costly assumption. Although our communications were very good at delivering information, we might not have been as good as we'd have liked to think on the listening side of things. That is definitely a takeaway and learning. Today, I need to ask what I would do differently. It's funny, when we're in the middle of the storm, we can't see what's right in front of us. And we often think that no other organisation would have an issue like this, except people who behave like this, or no other organisation could be that political. The truth is, I have come across this conflict time and time again, regardless of being in the public sector or private sector, multinational or small and medium businesses. The conflict that comes from the breakdown of interpersonal communications, where people are more interested in talking than listening, and more interested in being right than learning, is widespread. So that's one excerpt from that chapter that I wrote there. Okay.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you for the strong messages.
Thank
you. Indeed, we need to listen more than talking, really. Thank you very much. And now I'll move on to Steve Dennis, last but not least.
Oh, thank you very much, Michaela. I wanted to use 2 words, really. The first is gratitude. I've got a heart full of gratitude today to Nectarius and Michaela for inviting me to be part of this project, and gratitude to the other authors. For such a relatively slim volume, the book covers so many different industries, sectors. It's got a wide range of tools and techniques, and it presents so many different perspectives, as we've heard in our little chat this morning as well. And even the life or death situations. It's like reading a novel sometimes, particularly the aviation experiences. So as I've read the book myself, it's really made me think again about my career and some of the situations I've been in. And I think one of the great values of the book itself is it's very thought-provoking. And we've got some very young people on the call, maybe at the beginning of their career, people like myself, almost at the end perhaps. And I think as I read the book, I find it just keeps on giving. And I hope it will continue to do that for me and for others who read it. My chapter, very briefly, if I can sum it up with another word, and that is balance. The balance between getting the job done, which we often have to do to get paid and to finish the contract, and doing the right job. And that sometimes means not just closing down the loose ends, but following them, finding out what actually is behind some of those things. So, and in this time of COVID, of course, there's a big challenge between, we can think of this, we know it ourselves, a balance between health and a lot of other things, economy, etc., etc. And it really is a challenge trying to get the balance right. I think it's a real skill trying to get that balance. And when I think about my chapters, I think about the balance between safety and other things like operability. And I think it really takes skill, learning experience, and sometimes intuition to know how to get that balance right. And in writing the chapter that I've written, it's made me think about that again. And in fact, that it's an ongoing challenge, and I think we're always learning and adjusting. So the title of my chapter is Just When You Thought You'd Done Enough. And I think if I can just leave with a question, what is enough? How do we know that we've actually gone far enough? And how do we know we've got the right balance? And so it's been really fantastic listening to people talking about their chapters this morning. It's added so much to the value of the book for me, and it really does keep on giving. And it's been an exciting project to be part of. And thank you, Nectarius and Michaela, and all of the other authors, not just for your writing, but for your sharing today. Thanks, Michaela.
Thank you, Steve, for this. I'm sure most of us have lost their sleep at some point in our careers, so thank you for this. I think we covered everyone that is on the call today from the authors.
Yes, I guess so. I don't see any other author. If somebody's here and they haven't noticed, please let us know to give you, the time to say a few words. But now it's time for our friends all around here the world to ask anything they would like to say. To any of the authors, to Michaela or myself. We're here for you, and we're here to celebrate together this work, which is a collective effort. So we don't celebrate Michaela, Marion, Steve, and Nectarius. We just celebrate the work itself. Anyone, please unmute yourselves and feel free to speak, as long as we don't generate chaos.
Can I ask Nectarius, has it fulfilled your expectations? Has it gone beyond that? How do you feel now about this book?
That's a nice question. As with all my written work and those projects, I get very passionate when I'm doing that. I say it's great and things. And then when it's over, I look back, I really say that's a great piece of work. But I'm wondering, did we fulfill the expectations of the reader, of the ones who is the target audience, and will it last, over time? That's I feel so. I'm very confident, because the stories are not time restricted, they're not industry restricted, and they are technicalities, but those are hidden behind the words. Do you know, when we send to the publisher the concept and the provisional titles of your chapters, they came back to me with a draft with appendix of the standards and regulations to be referred. Say, you didn't even understand the concept. This is not a technical book. They are technical things, but we start from the story, from reflection. Many people discuss about investigations, about risk management, about technology. All those things are in the book, but they're not the main driver. The main driver is the human behind. And Michaela used the term confessions. I don't think it's a confession. Nobody did anything wrong. Yeah, nobody did anything wrong. everyone was trying to do their jobs. And half of the material in the book is great jobs, and half of the material is about jobs that didn't went as planned or expected. Yeah. Do we have anyone in the chat, or does anyone want to share something? Has anyone read the book apart from us as authors? Just to share with us something.
Nectarius, Graham Miller here from Brisbane. I haven't read the book, I've only heard about it this afternoon when I saw it online. So I'm keen to know, what is the intended audience for the book?
The intended audience is actually everyone, because our aspiration is to engage, first of all, of course, the safety profession in sharing and giving an example of how we can share successes and failures, and how reflective we must be, not just describing, the sequence of events, but what is behind, what is hidden. Second, managers who need to understand the challenges in the safety profession, that it's not something prescribed, that you just follow a checklist every morning that you say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, if A, then B, else C. And third, the public, because the public enjoys safety, but they have almost no clue of what is going on in the background. And sometimes the public will get surprised of, reaching to this tipping point of failure, but not, failing. And they can reflect in their lives on how many times while driving, while cycling, whatever activity they do, they have reached that point, more or less. So our aspiration is that the book is for everyone.
Can I just chip in there and say, I think a really good question, Graham, because often when someone's writing a book, they have to have an audience, like it might be it's a series or something and you like that author. I think a challenge here is, as Nectarius has said, there isn't actually, it's not just for practitioners, it's just not just for people who are in the business. It's almost, I think, great for anybody who's outside of our business to get an insight into the fact we are human and how we think, and all the pluses and minuses and so on. So, but I think that will be a challenge as to, who reads it, who gets it. I'd like to think it will have a very wide distribution. And certainly for me, the book just keeps on giving, as I say. And I think once you've got it, it's almost like, I don't want to use, it's like a Bible. It's like a thing you can keep dipping into and saying, what did that person feel about that? But anyway, that's just my thought.
Okay. Thank you very much, Steve. Graham, I hope we covered your question.
Thank you. You did. Thank you. And Steve, thank you very much for your contribution there. And may I say congratulations to you, Nectarius and Michaela, and all who were involved. It looks like a wonderful book, and I look forward to buying it.
Thank you so much, Graham. Anyone else would like to make any comment, to ask any question? I have a comment in the chat box that the price is quite high. First of all, we don't put the price tag. We're not the publisher. And just to make sure, to make clear that we don't even get anything from this. So no author, apart from the free copies, is getting anything more than those copies, okay? However, you can see, I shared with you the code that you can get a discount for 20%, either for the hard copy version or the electronic copy, which is, quite less expensive. And Richard here says that deep expertise is hidden everywhere, and we safety and human factor practitioner work in isolation. That's really a very great comment. And just to say that the next project is going to be with human factor stories for ergonomics. Maybe in 2 years from now. Yeah, quite loaded this period, but this could be the next project.
Once you start to do Nectarius, you can't stop.
Nectarius and Michaela, I had a quick question for both of you. So as editors and having read all chapters of the book, would you say did you identify any common theme among the positive stories as well as a common theme among the negative experiences? Something you'd like to share on that?
Yeah, very interesting question, Badar. You caught me by surprise. From my perspective, I wouldn't split it between positive and negative stories, but I would consider them all together. And what my take on the author's stories is that there was a suggestion to adopt a more systems or holistic perspective, to start zooming out a little bit and considering the system as a whole, the system we apply safety as a whole, consider human factors, consider policymakers, those people that design the systems, the end user, the environment. So yeah, that was something I found quite impressive and I agreed with. And that affected also my daily job as an engineer.
All right, that's good to know.
My answer to that about the success is, I would say it was the human in the center. This is the success about. And the inconvenient moments when forgetting the human. If I could make it binary, it was the failures were more about focus on technical parts of the job and how, as nicely Steve said, how to get the job done. And the successes where the human was part of our consideration. It was the starting point, not just a side component of the system to consider, you know, at any stage. That's my understanding from all 17 chapters. But I'm planning also to do a lexicographic analysis. And I'm going to get back to you with, I know, a publication somewhere to see what comes out of all stories together. This is in my plans for 2021 at some point.
Right, and I guess that also explains why you want to focus on human factors for the next book.
Yeah, that could be. Actually, when one colleague read the specific book, The Safety Insights, and because she's an ergonomist, say, why don't we do something similar for human factors? Say, yes, why not? Just let me relax for a while and we're going to start to try to you know, to start this project.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Badar, as well. Anyone else, any friend, any colleague, any relative? We have families also attending here. Maybe they feel shy to say something. You can give your comments directly in the chat box to any author or in the common area. We see congratulations here to the chat box. So if somebody wants to buy the hard copy or the electronic copy, you can see I have shared with you the discount code FLR40. This is only through the official you know, channel, I mean Routledge. Then any meta sellers, I don't know, this discount doesn't apply. And yeah, we know that the price seems high, but this is how the book starts with the, this has a hardcover, and over time, at some point, the publisher might consider to publish or to make available copies with the paperback. But everything in the beginning looks like that. So we have comments from many friends online. Thank you very much for your kind words. You can share them openly here. I know we are 8 past the expected time, but as nicely many of us said, work as done and work as imagined sometimes are different. And we are a proof of that tonight, today, this afternoon, this morning, depending wherever you are. So I see no other people wanted to share apart from nice comments in the chat book, in the chat box. Thanks very much everyone who came, especially we tried to accommodate the time differences, but we didn't. We could not keep everyone happy. Thanks very much to our families who supported us through this journey, and the extended family, the relatives. Thanks very much to our colleagues, ex-colleagues and current colleagues who inspire us during our work. Thanks very much to everyone who contributed to this work, and we're talking about Marion, Connor, Steve, Badar, Dimitri, Genoveva, and Michela. And I'm looking forward to come to Europe, Asia, wherever the borders open up, and meet together and celebrate with a beer, wine, whatever, you know, is available.
That would be so nice, Paris. To go over to Amsterdam again, yeah, and meet up and have some drinks at some stage, hopefully in the future.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Good night from Australia, and have a nice day in Europe.
Have a good weekend,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Been great to work with you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.